Hey everybody, welcome to this 139th edition of the Animated Girls Profile Confidential on this rainy Wednesday, and you can hear it. In fact, I will let you know that it's raining. Hold on for a sec. That's evidence right there, sound-wise, that it is raining outside. And if you need even more proof, I will open the back here and let you hear as well. So yes, it is raining, so it's indoors for a lot of people, especially those working and in school. And for me, it's a time to also still look for work, but also get this 139th edition of the Animated Girls Profile Confidential, up and going. And who are we going to talk about? Well, the name says it all. You see it right there. She is considered one of the godmothers, one of the grandmothers, one of the founding matriarchs of animated females in history. Of course, we're talking about Betty Boop, Miss Boop Boop De Doo herself. And this character has been around for quite some time. I mean, she might be considered the fourth, maybe third oldest character in history. I'm not really sure of when she came out and everything, but she has been around for quite some time, and it's hard to believe how long she's been around. In fact, let me see. 1930 was her first appearance. Dizzy Dishes, first appearance in 1930. So yeah. She is basically 6 years away from 100 years old. But yeah, Betty Boop has been around for quite some time. In fact, she's one of the characters in the 80s and somewhat in the 90s that got, somewhat of a revival. And what I mean by that? Well, merchandise was flying off the roof, flying out the door. And also, she had an animated movie. I don't know if it was theatrical or, direct-to-video. I think it may have been direct-to-video made for television, but she had an animated movie. Yeah, she had that. And, she'd been appearing on and off. One of her more notable appearances was in Who Framed Roger Rabbit, establishing that she and, Eddie, have a, Detective Eddie, that is, have a history. They know each other. And again, she has been seen all over the world. I mean, you cannot go to one country and not ask somebody who Betty Boop is, and they will not, give you an answer, because they will. They will give you a straight answer of who she is, when she started. Heck, they might even give you a whole biography, a whole historical, discussion, and how, how much they know about Betty Boop. That's what I was trying to say. But yeah, she has been around for quite some time. In fact, originally, one of the more historical trivias about this, and some people are shocked. Some people are shocked by this. Originally, Betty Boop was not a human. Her design later on, from what I've heard, there are some arguable debates, but from what I've heard, her design, when it became more human, was based on Betty Davis. That's right. Now, I could be wrong, correct me if I am, but there is word going around that Betty Davis, or at least some famous actress by the name of Betty, helped inspire the later human appearance of Betty Boop, because originally, Betty Boop was anthropomorphic. That's right. Betty Boop was anthropomorphic. She was a dog. Literally, she was a dog. And apparently some of the cartoons she appeared in, depending on how they were written, she was actually married to some characters. In fact, there was one cartoon I saw here on YouTube that she was in, and she's married. We find out she's married at the end of that. But again, when she first started, she was more of an anthropomorphic female canine, if you will, with a human appearance. Kind of think along the lines of what we see, or what we saw, I should say. Kind of think along the lines of what we saw with SWAT Cats and Felina Farrell, and to an extent, Callie Briggs. Think along those lines of, anthropomorphic cats, but with human features. And that's kind of what she was here, somewhat. But like I said, over time, she gradually evolved into the design that everybody knows and loves her for today. She's also noted for being the one character, the one character. She's very notable for being the one and only character for introducing the world, animation-wise, to Popeye. That's right. Popeye, he was in the Thimble Theater comics and the Thimble Theater comic strips of the newspapers and stuff. Being a background character, or an on and off character to basically being the star. And when it came for him to make the jump to animation, the people, I think it was the Max Fleischer's that were behind the Betty Boop cartoons. They decided to use Betty Boop as a launching point for Popeye. In fact, one of the cartoons is called, Popeye the Sailor, which introduces him and is an early example of using an established property as a pilot, as a, kind of a pilot, if you will, for a new series. Or for a new cartoon, for a new character. And in case you don't know what I mean, basically, when shows go this route to where you get introduced to a new line of characters, and the show is totally focused on them, and it feels like it's something totally different, like it's not the show you tuned in to watch, because what you're watching in the process is an episode that's serving as a pilot, an introduction, sort of a test to see whether or not, this show, a show based on these characters will fly. Married with Children had done this. Golden Girls had done this. I think Magnum P.I. and MacGyver and Knight Rider, they all did this. The A-Team did this. Basically, this is, like I said, a very notable, unique situation to where when they want to test out new characters and maybe test out new shows, they will basically, give a whole episode. They will dedicate a whole episode to said, characters and said proposed show. And Betty Boop, to me, was one of the early examples, probably the earliest example, period, of this happening, because basically it was advertised, the Popeye the Sailor short, where he got introduced, was advertised as a Betty Boop cartoon. But as you would watch it, you would see that Betty Boop's barely in it. She's like in it at the beginning and everything. She does play a role pointing out to Popeye that Bluto has kidnapped Olive, and then that's it. It's only mainly focused on Popeye and Olive and Bluto, and that's it. That's the rest of the cartoon. Now, I don't know if she shows up at the end or anything. She probably does, but basically at the end of the cartoon, or throughout most of it, it's mainly focused on Olive, Popeye, and Bluto. So Betty Boop, goes down in the history books historically as being one of the first earliest examples back in the 1930s, of essentially being a backdoor pilot. That's the word I was looking for, backdoor pilot for Popeye. That's what she was, in that one cartoon. Because like I said, again, this is something that, a lot of shows, cartoons and all that have done throughout the decades. Maybe not as prominent as they would, make them down the line, like in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, and even up to today. But, still, it's a practice that gets used to see how, like I said, folks will react to potentially a show dedicated to these characters. Like I said, these backdoor pilots were, utilized in episodes from Married with Children, The Golden Girls, Magnum P.I., Knight Rider, MacGyver, you name it. Full House, Growing Pains, and the list could go on. Family Matters, the list can go on. Even freaking Disney's Dinosaurs did a backdoor pilot, I think. But again, Betty Boop goes down in history, in my opinion, historically, as one of the first, if not the first, to do a backdoor pilot to introduce a character that would go on to be a character that's going to be hitting 100 years old soon in the next few years. Would go on to be one of the more beloved characters, animation and comic book wise, of all time. But this character has been in everything, that you could think of. Like I said, she was, of course, in animated shorts. She was in a movie. Around the same time she made an appearance in Roger Rabbit, an animated film, basically hoping to make a comeback. She's been seen, like I said, she's been seen in merchandise that sells off the shelves like it's nobody's business. It's nobody's business and all that. And there's been talk about her potentially getting a live-action film. There have been discussions on and off about her character getting a live-action film. And I'm not joking about that. And when and where that would happen is up to whoever wants to make it a reality. You also look at the fact that surprisingly, she's been in video games too. I think she's been in a few early video games. I think Atari and I think Commodore and maybe Coleco and a television may have had something involving her. I can't really recall. But unfortunately, I think if that's the case, it's one of the games, it was one of those kind of games that got released but didn't get much notoriety. Again, I'm not totally sure, but I'm not totally 100% sure, but I feel 100% in my gut that she did have some video games. So correct me if I'm wrong about that. But yeah, she set the standard. She set the standard for what an animated female character could be portrayed like in the near future. And a lot of her elements were used for feature films. I mean, you could see some elements of her character, I should say, be utilized in Snow White, in Walt Disney's first animated feature. You could see that. You could see some of those elements were used later on when they involved, design-wise and personality-wise, Olive. You could see that. You can see that even the early versions, I should say, of Minnie and Daisy and Clarabelle, they got inspiration somewhat. Some of the things Betty Boop did were incorporated into them, kind of slyly, but you could see it. The thing is, I'm telling you right now. I'm sure there's an Animation Hall of Fame. I'm not really sure where it's at. But if there was to be one, honestly, if there was to be one right off the bat, if there was to be an actual real-life Animation Hall of Fame, if there's not one already, but if there was to be, again, if there's not one already, then she needs to be among the first class. She needs to be one of the very first inductees in. End of story. But yeah, she has made such a huge impact. And again, she's made comebacks in the 80s, animation-wise. She made an appearance in Roger Rabbit. Her merchandise is still very popular, depending on where you get it. And again, there's been talk of her making another comeback in live action, but especially with a live action film. But that's something we'll have to find out whether or not it will occur. But what more can you say about this iconic character? I mean, she's also known as one of the more iconic rubber hose characters. And if you don't know what rubber hose is, it's basically when a character, is kind of very malleable, very shape-shifty, if you will. Morphical, if you will. And she's even shown that. There was one cartoon they did with her running for president where she basically morphed herself, shapeshifted herself into, I think, Eisenhower or something. You know, so she's known as one of the characters that could do that. I'm kind of surprised they never had her do the melt gag, you know, where she melts down into a puddle. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe it happened, let me know. But still, overall, she's known for being one of the very first characters in history to really put that, you know, on the map, put that kind of style that's been making a comeback in the past, you know, few years, you know, on the map. And you got this new animated film called If, starring, you know, Ryan Reynolds, this new family film, I think, that has a character that is clearly inspired by Betty Boop. Yeah, that's right. It has an imaginary female character inspired, you know, by Betty Boop. You could see that. And also, let's not forget, you want to talk about inspirations, controversial inspirations, take a look at Drawn Together and the Betty Boop-like character they had there. I mean, you want to talk about the impact this girl has had. You know, there's an example, those are just a few examples, in my opinion. Just a few. But, you know, overall, what more can you say about the character that nobody else has ever said yet? You know, what more can you say about her that even Leonard Maltin has not said? You know, or the late Roger Ebert and, you know, Gene Siskel. You know, what more can you say? What more can you say that Matt Burnett has said on Animation Classics or Look Back? I'm just saying. But in closing, to me, you know, the female characters, they wouldn't be where they are, you know, hybrid-wise with the personalities and stuff today if it wasn't for a character like Betty Boop. Let's be honest. Let's be honest. They wouldn't be there. You know, they wouldn't be there. But anyway, though, guys, that's all I'm going to say here on the 139th edition of the Animated Girls Profile Confidential. Let me know what your thoughts are down below. What impact do you remember Betty Boop having? When did you first see Betty Boop in animation? Let me know. And do you think we will probably get the live-action Betty Boop movie that has been in the talks of happening for years? We just don't know when it's going to be official, if it is. Let me know. And until next time, guys, I am out.